All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Let's get right back to the phone lines, and we got David on line 3. What's up, David?
Yeah, I just feel that you guys need to take a break on Ben Roethlisberger. The weather conditions were really terrible, and James Conner probably wouldn't have dropped that ball if it wouldn't have been so wet. And I think you Pittsburgh people sports broadcasters shouldn't take so hard on him.
Hey, what are we going to talk about then if we don't talk about Ben Roethlisberger and the problems that they had on Sunday? It was a consistent rain. I think weather did play a part, Paul, but I also think bad throws in.
I mean, come on. Listen, the guy had 5 turnovers in a game. 5.
But he said it wasn't.
Listen, we spend how many?
Don't give him a hard time, Paul.
Go have another beer. I mean, come on. Listen, the whole point about this thing is we spend every single week and almost talking about how great Ben is. When he's not great, we say, you know what? This was a bad week for him. It was a bad week. It's okay. None of us are saying he's a bad quarterback. Well, Stephen A. Smith is, but that's different. Nobody that has a brain is saying he's a bad quarterback or that the Steelers should get rid of him. He just had a bad week, and that's okay. He'll be, most likely if he's healthy, he'll bounce back and have a good week because he's a good quarterback. But he had a bad game, and you know what? James Conner, that fumble. It's a great play by Miles. What's his name?
He punched the ball out.
Miles Garrett
came
stripped
right
him
from behind.
I don't care if it was dry, wet, icy, snowy, whatever. That ball was coming out because he made a great play to strip it. I mean, it is what it is. The weather condition, I don't want to hear that nonsense. The Browns played in the same weather condition and had 1 turnover. So
how many quarterbacks would you put ahead of Ben if you wanted to win one game right now?
These
4?
Conversations are tough. Here's why. I would put Brady there. I would put Rodgers there.
Maybe Breeze.
That's it. Okay, 2. I think Breeze might be a better thrower than Ben.
So you're saying Ben is 3, essentially.
At the very worst, Ben is 4. If you want to tell me Breeze, I might listen to an argument, but at the very worst, Ben is 4.
And I agree. I think he's a top 5 quarterback still.
I mean,
he just had a bad
seriously,
game.
There's nobody. I mean, who else would you put up there? Oh, of course, Boomer Esiason, and then put Pat Mahomes up there.
Let's go out to Dan out in Plum. What's up, Dan? Dan, you there?
Hey, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
They're talking about Bell coming back in the 11th game or 10th game. Is it possible that they could rescind their offer and not give them that $14.5 million and maybe give it to somebody else that we need later on?
Well, they can't give it to anyone this year because there's probably no one available. Yes, they can rescind it, and then he becomes a free agent.
Exactly.
That would be stupid.
And then he signs with the Patriots.
Then he signs with the Patriots
like
or someone
else.
Yeah. I mean, if he comes back and week 10, I think he's a fool because he needs 6 games, and the Steelers really could screw him by putting him on a 2-week exemption in week 10, and then you'd only get 4 games, and then we're in the same situation next year.
Like I said to you the other night, I think he'll come back after week 4.
Do you? I think if I had to bet, I would say after the bye.
The Steelers would be stupid. When he comes in, they would be dumb not to get him ready to play.
He's saving the Steelers millions of dollars.
Exactly. The other thing is they would rather have a fresh Le'Veon Bell for the playoffs.
Down the stretch run. I mean, it's a win-win, I guess, for both of them when you think about it.
It really is. To me, I don't understand what the big deal is.
It's a win-win. All right, let's go out to John out in Johnstown. What's up, John?
Yes, gentlemen, here's my opinion.
I want to hear.
Roethlisberger, he lost that game, and so did Tomlin. You got to win the game and quit trying to throw up yardage. And that's my opinion, brother.
Thank you. I don't think that they were trying to put up yardage. I just think it was 6 turnovers. That's what lost the game.
I think the one thing we saw from Ben was that gunslinger Ben coming back. And that's not a good I know what you said the other night. I don't agree with you. I think a controlled Ben who makes a few plays here and there with his feet, or whatever, is good.
I like the gunslinger Ben.
I don't because
I want a gunslinger Ben that doesn't force the ball to Antonio Brown.
Again, what's his record like? 10-80 or something when he throws the ball 40 or more times. It's not good.
No, but he put up some of his best games when he wasn't a gunslinger, like you talked about yesterday.
Again, you say whatever you want to say about Todd Haley. He's mean. He's not a nice guy. He's all that. He never played the game. 5 of Ben's 6 best seasons came with Todd Haley calling the plays. That's all you need to know.
Ray, real quick, what's up, Ray?
Yeah, I want to talk about Ben Roethlisberger. I got a question for you guys. If he gets injured, is he going to retire? I know he was thinking about retiring, but you think if he gets injured and goes out for about 3 or 4 weeks, will he retire?
That's a good question, Ray. I don't know. Maybe he would retire. Before this year, he said he wanted to play this year and 2 more, at least 3 years. I don't think he retires.
About?
Like, if it's a season-ending injury, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe if he needs Tommy John surgery, maybe. Who knows? But, I mean, other than that, why would he retire if he's out 4 weeks?
No, I still
think. And here's
think,
the other thing about Ben. He wants to win another Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think he's competitive as much as he says he's going to retire and thought about retirement. He's not retiring. He's going to sign another contract. He's going to be here for another 3 years, especially now that the Steelers got a quarterback that might compete for a starting job at some point. I don't think he's going anywhere, Paul.
He's not. He wants to win another Super Bowl.
All right, we got to go somewhere, and that's to a break. Back in a couple minutes.